Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar, and in today's bass guitar lesson I want to show you how to make the circle of fifths really useful and how to use it to supercharge your practice routines. If that sounds good, make sure you check this lesson out all the way to the end. Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar, and in today's lesson I want to answer a question from Jerry, who is one of my Bass Lab Plus students over at eBassGuitar.com, and he said, how do I actually make the circle of fifths useful? How do I use it in practice? So today I want to show you how I go about integrating the circle of fifths into my practice routine. Before we get going, there is a completely free PDF which comes with this lesson, which will show you the circle of fifths written out. There's a link in the description, so make sure you grab your free circle of fifths PDF cheat sheet below. Just before we hit the main lesson content, if you're interested in how the circle of fifths is used to create some of the greatest songs ever written, make sure you check out a lesson called I Will Survive the Circle of Fifths on the eBassGuitar blog. This is where I take apart the legendary Gloria Gaynor disco tune I Will Survive and show you how the circle of fifths directly relates to the chord construction in that song. There is a link in the description below where we'll link to that lesson. So what is the circle of fifths? The circle of fifths is a musical concept which has been around since the days of Bach and is used all over the place, from Bach's music through to jazz standards through to pop tunes like I Will Survive. So the chances are that you've probably already heard it without really realizing what it is. Put simply, the circle of fifths is just a way of reordering the 12 chromatic notes, or fret by fret as we go up the neck, into a more musical order, which is either based on ascending up a fourth or down a fifth. So you might also hear it called the cycle of fourths. The cycle of fourths and the circle of fifths is essentially the same thing conceptually for us bass players. So let's just start creating the sequence of notes that you find in the circle of fifths. All we're going to do here is go up a fourth each time. Remember, going up a fourth and coming down a fifth is exactly the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on a C here, and then I'm literally going to go up the major scale 4 notes, so C, D, E, F. So that is our first interval, so we go from a C to an F, like that. And then we go up to another fourth yet again, which is going to be F, G, A, B flat. So we end up with C, F, and then I'm going to put the B flat down there. And then we're going to go up 4 notes again, so E, B flat, C, D, E flat, like that. And then we're going to go up 4 notes again, which is going to be E flat, F, G, A flat, which takes us to there. So the notes we've gained so far is going to be C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, like that. And then if we go up a fourth again, we get a D flat like that. And then if we go up a fourth again, we get a G flat like that. And then if we go up a fourth again, we get a B. And then if we go up another fourth, we go an E. And then if we go up another fourth again, we get an A. And then if we go up another fourth again, we get a D. And then if we go up another fourth again, we get a G. And then if we go up another fourth yet again, we end up with a C like this. So we have been through all of the 12 notes in the scale, or the chromatic scale. So it's really super helpful to see this written out. So make sure you download the free PDF cheat sheet which comes with this lesson. So this sequence that we've created using the circle of fifths or cycle of fourths can be a great framework to structure our practice. So often I see students, and what they do when they practice scales is they always ascend or descend in half steps like this. Etc, etc, which can be really useful, but personally I find if I'm practicing scales, for instance, it's much better to do it over the circle of fifths. So let me explain this in its simplest form. So the first scale I'm going to practice is a C like this, and then we'll go to an F scale, and then we'll go to B flat, E flat, A flat, G flat, and then up to the B. And what it does is it really starts to engage the brain a little bit more and means we're jumping around the neck quite a bit. And you'll also start to see these patterns created on the neck of the circle of fifths like this, where the roots are. So it's a much more engaging way to practice scales and learning the neck. So it's quite straightforward just to do that with 1 octave scales. But the next thing to do is turn them into 2 octave scales. And this is where the circle of fifths comes into its own, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a C major scale, 2 octaves like this. But if I was to go up to an F here, what would happen is I'd actually run out of frets if I was to use just the same shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the F here and play 2 octaves. So like that. So this is now the sequence we've had. Then to the F. Next we want to do it with the B flat, so I'm going to go to the B flat there and do 2 octaves. So the next step in the circle of fifths is to go to an E flat, and the lowest E flat we can get is here. And what that does is it takes me right to the very top fret on a Fender bass like this. So hopefully you can see by practicing scales 2 octaves using the circle of fifths as a basis, you're actually starting to really learn the neck and really use the whole register of the instrument. So you'll get a much more thorough understanding of how the bass guitar neck works. Ultimately, what you're aiming for is to be able to play 2 octave scales consistently throughout the whole of the circle of fifths without speeding up or slowing down. It's a great physical and mental exercise. But what I'd like to get my students to do is break it down into what I call cells. So we'll practice 2 particular scales at a time from the circle of fifths. I'm going to just demonstrate this so you can see it in concept. So we're going to go from the A flat to the D flat. So there are root notes from the circle of fifths. So what I'm going to do is play the A flat scale. And then go to the D flat. Then let's do it in time. Then up to the D flat. Then back again. That's just using 1 octave. But this is the way you build up the whole of the sequence so you know it. So just do it 2 scales at a time so it really builds logically. So guys, if you're enjoying this lesson, make sure you jump over to eBassGuitar.com and check out the BassLab Plus. The BassLab Plus is a super easy to understand program designed especially for beginner to intermediate bass players. We have a ton of courses in there, right from playing your very first notes all the way through to playing walking bass line, blues bass lines, and improvising your own bass lines too. But specifically relating to this lesson, there is a course in there called the Ultimate Music Theory Bootcamp, which will show you how music theory, just like the circle of fifths, works on the bass guitar right from the ground upwards. You can join today free with a 14-day trial. There is a link in the description below. So to finish this lesson off, what I want to do is show you where these concepts can go, because there are so many possibilities. So far we've covered using major scales, but obviously you can use minor scales too. You could use modal scales too. You could use diminished scales. You could use 1 octave scales, 2 octave scales. If you've got a 5 or a 6 string bass, you could use 3 octave scales. There are so many possibilities depending on your instrument. But my real preference, where I get excited using this concept, is actually practicing arpeggios. So I'm going to show you that now. So what I'm going to do is take a C major 7 arpeggio and show you how to superimpose this through the circle of fifths. So let's try this first of all with a simple 2 octave C major 7 arpeggio. So let's go through that. We're going to have a C, E, G, B like that, and then the same thing, get up the octave. Then we're going to take this into F. And then into B flat. And And then into E flat. And this is where things start getting a little bit more challenging because the access is a little bit more restricted up here. So you want to try and get it as clean as you can, and then into A flat. So what you want to do is try and find the two sort of cells or blocks to practice again, so you can start really pushing this into time. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Let's try it with A flat and D flat, for instance. So we're going to go up. And then back again. It's D flat. And then you could go on and build it up that way. Obviously, you can try this with every single arpeggio you know. You can try it with your diminished arpeggios too. The possibilities are limitless. But for me, this is just a much more engaging and much more musical way of practicing content on the bass guitar neck. And all of these shifts that you're practicing are 100% real world, because the circle of fifths is used in hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of songs. So this is shifts and ideas that you're going to see time and time again. So it's a lot more useful than just practicing things chromatically. So guys, that's the end of today's lesson. If you've enjoyed the lesson, make sure you download the free circle of fifths cheat sheet. There's a link in the description below. Also, if you need help with your bass playing, make sure you check out the Bass Lab Plus for a really simple, easy to understand bass guitar program. There is a link in the description below where you can join today free with a 14-day trial. Cheers, I've been James from eBassGuitar, and I'll catch you next time.